Yeah, l'chaim. Yom Tif. You sit in the middle of the table, like on the table. It's an Affentisch. The Elam hart nicht. Als man hart nicht dem ersten Mal, hat man nicht das famous fire. Plenty of place. Or von alle Seiten. We can warfen, we can... Ja? Jetzt können wir schön hören. Okay, l'chaim. Yom Tif. The Yom Tif von Yud Tmuz is Chag HaGeula von der Friedeke Rebbe.
Wishes.
Yeah? English speaking. Russian?
Russian.
Russian?
Some people want to.
It's the Yom Tif of Mesiras Nefesh. The Friedeke Rebbe showed his Mesiras Nefesh that he was willing to go to prison to save Yiddishkeit in the Soviet Union. And he taught his Chassidim that they should be ready for that too. So the Shaila fragt sich, Yud Beis Tammuz, the Rebbe got the idea that he's free. On Yud Gimel Tammuz they freed him, Poel Mamish. He packs his bags and he leaves Russia. He left the Soviet Union. And that was part of the Tanai that they let him out, that he should leave. And the Rebbe speaks about how the Friedeke Rebbe said he's not leaving without his Svarim, without his Chvetzim that they took away. Oh, yeah. But the Poel, the Friedeke Rebbe left the Soviet Union, and he left hundreds, thousands of Chassidim to fight the fight on their own. How you talking? If the Friedeke Rebbe was ready for Mesiras Nefesh, so why didn't the Friedeke Rebbe say, I'm not leaving? Tut was wilt. You want me to sit in prison, I'll sit in prison. You want to let me sit at home, I'll sit at home. Ich gehe nicht da raus. I'm not leaving my Chassidim behind. Haben wir getracht wegen dem? Nein? Okay. Ah? Okay, the Teretz weißt du. After a week of bombing and shooting and not being able to leave because my city was under siege, so it came to a point that all the shluchim around left already, and we're getting a lot of pressure from all over as Muzgain. So we found out that there was one way that we could go, and we had to make the decision if we're going to we're gonna leave or we're not going to leave. I was home with my wife and 4 youngest children. The older kids are learning all over the world, and the oldest son that was with me at home was 12 years old, and the youngest, the girl, was 6 years old. We had a family meeting that we were thinking of leaving. And my 12-year-old said, "Metarnish game. We can't leave." Why? Because how can we leave? We're the shluchim. How can we leave if the community is going to think that we left them behind? Kaddish game. My 6-year-old, who was singing the whole week, I believe in Hashem, I trust in Hashem, there never is a moment when I am alone and I'm not on my own. I believe and I trust in Hashem. A ganze Woche sie singt, I believe and I trust in Hashem. So she says, if we leave, then that means we don't believe and trust in Hashem. Gerecht. you believe and trust in Hashem, darfst du doch nicht gehen. Kannst bleiben. Anyway, so all of these arguments were part of my letter that I wrote to the Rebbe, whether we should leave or we shouldn't leave. But more than anything else, I wrote that if we do decide to leave, it should be in a way that the community should realize that we're not leaving them behind. I opened up the Igros Kodesh, and the letter is Yud Beis Tmuz, and the Rebbe writes, it's a Michtav Klali, Prati Klali, and the Rebbe writes in the letter that the only reason why the Frierdiker Rebbe left the Soviet Union, even after they let him out in Yud Beis Tmuz, was because he knew that by being outside, he could help the Chassidim a lot more than by being inside. So B'meila, it was important for him to leave in order to do that. And therefore, the Rebbe writes, he left b'simcha b'zrizus. So that was pretty much our answer, go ahead, so to say. To leave wasn't very easy, but before I go into that and let you in on the gory stories, darf man erst makdim sein that the city that I live in, a small city in Ukraine, Sumy, it's on the Russian border. The Sumy county is 300 kilometers of the Russian border. The whole northern part of the border, from Belarus all the way down to Kharkov, which is a very large border, and the road to Kiev for Moscow goes through our county, basically, goes through Sumy. When I came originally 18 years ago, so the Seder is given that you have to have a visa. In order to American to be in Ukraine, you need a visa, and the visa you have to renew every 3 months. And to renew the visa, you need to give in your application to the Ovir office, the immigration office. And the application darf sein ausgeschrieben dafka in Russian or in Ukrainian, not in English, chas v'shalom. And you have to know how to spell your name in Russian. Do you spell your name Liווטאנסקי with 1 E or Liווטאנסקי with 2 E's? So in some of the papers they translated Liווטאנסקי, and some of the papers they translated Liווטאנסקי. So when you give in the paperwork, they say no, the paperwork is ausgeschrieben nicht richtig. You have to redo the whole application again. You can't correct anything, chas v'shalom. You have to rewrite the whole thing again in Russian, and you have to fill it out. And then you have to give it into the office. The office only works between the hours of 9 and 11. And if you came a minute before, a minute after, it's the verfeld. And if you missed it, so then you have to come back next week. But you come back next week, they change the days of when they work. Now they only work on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and only between 3 and 5. And you didn't know that. And everything is written in Russian or Ukrainian. It was a kopshmertz. Every 3 months, it was at least a week or two of work just to get the visa. So after a couple of times of doing this, I said, "Ich kann schon manage." I hired a lawyer, and I gave him the paperwork that he needed, and I said, "Du bist, it's my shliach. Every 3 months, go down to the office and do all the work that needs to be done. Lass mir up. I don't need this headache." So after 5 years of doing this, he also got bored of it, and he tells me that there's a law in Ukraine. If you live here 5 years legally, and you have property, by then we already bought property to build a mikveh, so I owned property, and I was there 5 years legally, you have the right to apply for residency. And it's up to the head of immigration in your county to deny or approve. So it's up to the person in charge. He says you have nothing to lose. At the worst, they'll deny it. But you have a 50% chance that they'll say yes, and you'll get the residency. So we applied, but to apply for residency is shenishta form. You have to fill out your whole seder ishtalshlus, me'ayin basa, lana tahilich, and where you learned, the way davened, and where you gessen, and what's your matara in life, and why do you want to live here, and why dafke here. Bekitzer, a ganze Megillah. We filled everything out, and then the lawyer says, instead of giving it as a schlepper, by then I already knew the governor of the county, and this is all part of one office. Give it to the governor's office, and they're going to give it into the immigration office, and it'll have a lot more chance of getting approved. Included a little bit of an envelope on the side, just a mistake that got left in the application forms, just by mistake. Okay, durchgegangen, 2 weeks passed. Application denied. Please come pick up your application.
Not enough money.
Not enough money. Okay. Please come pick up the application.
No refund.
So you come to pick up the application, they tell me the head of immigration wants to see you. Go into the office. I come to the office, sitzt dort na Frau, a lady. She says, Rabbi, I read your whole application and I'm not convinced. What are you not convinced? So she says, I have to give my approval to this application. It's my conscience. I could only think of 2 reasons why somebody's going to move from Los Angeles with his whole family to Sumy, Ukraine, and he wants to live here. Only 2 reasons. Either you're a spy or you're a Meshuggah. We don't need spies, and we don't need Meshuggahim. So my conscience doesn't allow me to give you the stempel. So I have to deny the application. So I told her, I understand you very well, and I want to thank you. Because if you read my application properly, you realize that I came here because the Lubavitcher Rebbe sent me as a shliach to be here. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe taught us that in order to change the world, that the world should be better, we have to be Meshuggah. We have to do shtus de kedusha. We have to do good things in a crazy way. So if you're telling me that I'm crazy, you're giving me a stempel, I am doing the shlichus that the Rebbe wants me to do, so just for that, I have to thank you. Even though you're denying the application, I have to thank you for telling me that I'm doing my work and I'm doing the right job. It didn't convince her. This is not she didn't give it to me. My wife had to be more crazy than me, and she decided to give birth to one of our children in Ukraine, and das hat schön bewiesen, dass es gut Meshuggah, because the hospitals over there look like a prison cell, and then we were able to get already residency, which, by the way, happened. My daughter, who was born then, was born on Chavches Sivan, which the Rebbe spoke about and said that Chavches Sivan started a new shlav in the shlichus. So in Chavches Sivan, we got the okay to get residency in Ukraine, which was a new shlav in our shlichus. But this idea, as medarf sein a bissel Meshuggah, medarf a reis gehen von sich, you need to go out of your comfort zone in order to make a dira b'tachtenim. Is something that goes from the most from the biggest mashpiyim until the youngest child. The Rebbe wanted us to be a little bit Meshuggah, not to be the norm, to do things because azay darf sein. Mesiras nefesh is Meshuggah. To give up your life for something, to be ready to die for something, is not a normal thing. It's a Meshuggah thing to do. But the Rebbe meant Mesiras Nefesh. Mesiras Nefesh in the times of the Frierdiker Rebbe was literally giving up your life. Mesiras Nefesh in our days doesn't necessarily mean giving up your life, but it means giving up a little bit of your comfort zone and going out of yourself and having to give up a little bit of sleep or a little bit of food or a little bit of whatever it is, a little bit of your time, to do something that you're not comfortable doing, to do something that you think people around you are not comfortable with. People around you are going to say, as a Gevorn Chassidish, or it's just, people around you are going to see you differently. You feel like, oh, this is not me. So Yud Beis Tamuz is a Yom Tov from Mesiras Nefesh. The Rebbe taught us to Medarf sein Meshuggah. Medarf a reis gehen von sich and do Shtus de Kedusha. We know what we have to do, and we have to do it not because it's comfortable, not because it's the right thing for people around us, but because that's what the Rebbe wants us to do. Whether it's about chinuch, so we have a Meshuggah in our family. I say it's a Meshuggah because it has absolutely no basis really. And my father, when he was a bacher in New York, he was in charge of mitvachsha, of release time, and they ordered then cookies for the release time. So it was sandwich cookies, right? And the kids, what do kids do with sandwich cookies? They open it up, they lick off the cream, and the cookie, they eat the cream on the inside. So the kids were licking off the cream. On the inside of the cookie was printed W, was like a stempel, a stamp of a W. It happened to be that in those days there was a cookie company, Weston Cookies. There was a Treifa company, and they made such cookies. And my father knew about this, so he realized that these cookies were coming from the Weston Cookie Factory, and it was cookies from Pashkis. So he went down to the Pashkis company, and he said, "Who's the mashkiach? Who goes to check?" There was an elderly yid over there in charge, and he said, I go to, my father says, this is a huge factory. You go yourself to kasher the ganze line and everything to make it kasher. So he says, yeah, ich trust mich nicht. You don't trust me? Ess nicht. My father was a little bit Meshuggah in that way, so he said, okay, ich ess nicht. So he stopped. This is the story with Pashkis. In my family, I'm Meshuggah, me ess nicht Pashkis. Okay. Doesn't matter what hechsher is on it, me ess nicht Pashkis. So, we live in Sumy, Ukraine. Darton, we go to milk a cow for milk. We make our own bread. We joke about that in America, if you want to send your kids off to school with a sandwich, what's the quickest sandwich that you can make? All right. Yeah, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, that does it. So the peanut butter we make ourselves, the jelly we make ourselves, and the bread we make ourselves. So by the time you made the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and just to make a peanut butter sandwich is, yeah, it's not the fastest and easiest. So it's not like you have all kinds of goodies. Anyway, 2 years ago, a group came to the Kvarim in Ukraine. They were in Hadich, which is not far from us. And most people don't come to us because we're further out. But there happened to be one person who was in charge of this group who knows me, a bacher. He was by us on Merkish Luchas. So he decided that he wants to take the whole group to Fabrein in Sumy. It's 2 hours out of the way. He schleps a group of 20 chevra from Karnites, and they come marching into our house. And of course, the first thing they do is they see the kids and they take out from their suitcases all kinds of nash to give the kids. You see Shulchan's kids living in such a place, give them nash. So my kids get the nash and they look at it and they say, no good. No good? What are you talking about? This is, well, no, it's pashkas. We don't eat pashkas. These people, they're staring about it. But Meshuggah, I can tell you, he was talking about chinuch from kinder, so I'm just adding to this Farbrengen a little bit, that when my daughters went to learn in Eretz Yisrael, and I had quite a few of them already, that went to learn in Eretz Yisrael and Tzvas, in the Lubavitcher community, where you have everything available to you. It's whatever you want. You go to the store, you can buy whatever you want. And one of my daughters called at one point and she said, I want to thank you for teaching us that we don't need everything. Anything that comes, not even though everybody eats, it doesn't mean that I have to eat it. Because it taught my kids that even though you're living in a place where everybody says everything, but we have our own certain standards that lav dafka as man muss nicht weil alle tun meint das as mir darfen. Just because everybody around you is doing something, it doesn't mean that you have to participate in it. You could say, not mine. I don't do this. I don't participate. And that koyach is a very important koyach to have, especially living in a from community where everybody feels like equal and everybody's the same. And if he does it, so why can't I do it? If he has a phone, why can't I have a phone? V'chulu v'chulu. Darf nicht reingehen in alle, right? My kids didn't have to have it because from the beginning they were taught that we're different. We're shluchim of the Rebbe. We have our matara, we have our shlichus, we have our thing. Not because we do what we have to do, and not necessarily because everybody does it doesn't mean that I have to also do it, or it's part of me and that I could do it. And that it's taka Meshuggah zach, but that's what the Rebbe wanted. The Rebbe wanted us to be a little bit out of the box, a little bit Meshuggah, and these are the things that stick, and these are the things that keep us doing our shlichus, doing what we have to do.
You said each
Samagon?
for regular? You said I don't say nothing. I don't say nothing.
It's called Samagon.
You want to send me something? You don't can I get a copy of him?
Samagon.
Not for me.